Hello, all warriors of light and soon-to-be warriors of darkness. It is time for us to go into our in-depth analysis of the latest trailer we got for Shadowbringers. Now, as I'm sure that everyone knows by now, just a couple days ago, the launch trailer for Shadowbringers came out, and boy, was it good. I did a live reaction video of it, and I put the link down below in case you wanted to see me completely freaking out about it. But yeah, we are going over just about every square inch of the trailer that we've seen. We're just going to give a very brief discussion of what we saw, some of my thoughts of what's going to be coming to us. So if you haven't seen the trailer yet and you don't want it to be spoiled, or if you don't want to be spoiled by anything about Shadowbringers in general, I would suggest not watching this. But yeah, we are taking a quick gander at everything we saw and what I personally think could be waiting for us in Shadowbringers. Right, so let's start. We open up with the Warrior of Light, soon to be Warrior of Darkness, staggering through Lakeland. So I can only assume that this is just after our journey where we go across time and space to reach this place. I'm guessing that after we end up finding this beacon at the Crystal Tower, we might have, I don't know, got sucked into some kind of a portal. We go flying through some crazy adventure, like some really wild cutscenes, I'm betting, and we wake up here in Lakeland. Anyway, that's my best guess because it clearly was not an easy journey that the Warrior of Darkness here is going through. We see them holding their head as if they're in a lot of pain. So I'm going to say that this is going to be like kind of the result of a nasty hangover. That's kind of the impression here. So yeah, we get our first look at all these trees and the bright sky that is kind of an after effect of the flood of light. We see them staggering around for a while, very similar to how we see them in the original cinematic trailer for Shadowbringers. We see them walking across that dead, desolate, desert-like area, just going through so many horrible memories inside their head, and that's really kind of the first sign that the Warrior of Light is pretty much been pushed to their breaking point. They've been pushed beyond their breaking point, and I think it's only going to be a matter of time before they crack. Anyway, after we stagger around for a while, we find ourselves coming across an old man sitting at a campfire who looks strangely like one of the three brothers that we meet when we first come to Eorzea. So it kind of makes one wonder if they may have had a long-lost brother or something who accidentally ended up here. Maybe that's a discussion better left for another time. Anyway, we hear him talking, laughing about the fact that he sees the Warrior of Light dressed like a Dark Knight, though they haven't had a Dark Knight for 100 years. And he kind of speaks with almost an Irish accent as he says, "Well, if it ain't the oldest trick in the book. When, pray tell, did we last have a Dark Knight? Over 100 bleeding years ago, that's when." So I'm guessing that this guy is going to be the first person that we meet when we first come to the world of the First. And of course, he's not going to know anything about the Warrior of Light. He won't have the slightest clue who this guy is, or where we came from, or generally nothing interesting. Which is actually going to be a really interesting prospect because it has been a very, very long time since the Warrior of Light was able to go someplace and nobody knew anything about them, knew who they were, where they came from. So it may feel a bit nostalgic, actually. Kind of like you're playing through the game for the first time. Well, moving on. We next have a scene that looks to be the inside of a cave or a temple. We're also going to see this cave later on in the trailer as well, but we also see the images of figures painted on the wall, as well as what look to be a group of people examining these pictures. This next cave drawing is a little difficult to make out, but it seems to me it's some sort of an image of a figure standing against some sort of oncoming wave of light. So I'm guessing that this might actually be an image of Minfilia painted when she first came to the star and halted the wave of light before it got worse. Now I say that because of another image, and this is actually something that looks like a memory, something that we've seen before in the game, but we see this figure dressed in white as she stops this flood of light swallowing up a city, which looks suspiciously to be Amarang. So we must be learning the story about what happened after she arrived here. And that's when we also hear this voice speaking, In that chaotic moment between realms, time and space warped and blend in unexpected ways. What Urianger saw was the future. So I don't know who is speaking here yet, but it really makes one wonder what they're talking about. Time and space have warped and blended in unexpected ways. Well, when they say that, the first thing I'm thinking about is maybe time has somehow changed to such a point that time in the world of the first is much faster than time back in Eorzea. So I'm going to say that it's been a couple months at the very most since we said goodbye to Minfilia back in Eorzea. But maybe after she traveled to the world of the first, something happened that caused time to be shifted to such a way that even though it's only been a few months for us, it could have been, say, 100 years since Minfilia first came to the world of the first. So in a way, those few people who actually came up with the suggestion that we were going to be time traveling in the new expansion, this was before we knew that we were going to the world of the first, well, they may have been partially right. It looks like there is going to be at least a hint of time travel or some kind of time distortion here. And I was actually playing around with the idea of, well, maybe after the Scions all collapsed like flies and were transported to the realm of the first, because that's what it looked like, maybe time here has moved so much faster that it's been a lot longer for them. Like, say, for example, that they got to this world and they've been there for 100 years when really it's only been like a few weeks since they all collapsed like flies and are left comatose back in Eorzea. I mean, that would at least explain how everybody seems to have changed jobs somewhat. I mean, we have Urianger, Thancred, and Y'shtola seemingly changing jobs, and it usually takes a lot longer than that to actually master certain weapons. So I'm going to say that they may have been there a little bit longer than we realize. This next scene here appears to be us flying through time and space, so this has to be after we find the beacon, we leave Eorzea behind, we take the leap straight into the ethereal sea to go to the first. Now, way back in Heavensward was when we first met the Warriors of Darkness, and we eventually find out the truth about them, that they came from the world of the first, they came to Eorzea, they were trying to find some way to save their otherwise doomed world. And we eventually find out that they actually had to give up their own lives to be able to travel from their world to the next. Now, for the Scions who were taken to the world of the first, their teleportation was very different. Their physical bodies were all left behind back in the Rising Stones. But somehow, it's like maybe their spirits manifest. Maybe it's almost like a primal state, that their bodies are actually made of ether. Maybe they're not even aware of what's going on. I actually got into a discussion about this with a friend of mine, like, what if they went all the way to the first shard and they end up losing their memories? I mean, that would explain why Y'shtola doesn't go by her name here. She went by Matoya. And at first I was like, no, that couldn't happen. That's way too cliche. But the more I thought about it, the more like, you know what? There is some bit of truth to that, maybe. Because it would explain, like, if Y'shtola, who was very close to Matoya, suddenly lost all of her memories, it stands to reason that maybe, like, a part of her would at least remember Matoya's name, and because that's how close that they once were, and she might have mistaken it for her own. But I also, at the same time, I kind of find that a little bit unlikely. I'm not sure if I really like that idea, but I am just going to hold it out there for everyone just to be on the safe side. I mean, I'm not saying that their memories are never going to come back if that's really what happened. If anything, it would be only a temporary thing, kind of like what happened with Yotsuyu and how she temporarily lost her memory. But I just thought I'd throw that out there, even though I don't personally think that's what happened. But yeah, we do know that the Warriors of Darkness had to give up their own lives in order to come to the world of the first. The Scions had to, basically, their souls traveled across time and space to this other world. Still not sure how that happened. But we do know that there are ways of being able to travel between worlds. but apparently it's not exactly easy to do so. We still don't know how they're going to make it so that we, as the Warrior of Light, soon to be Warrior of Darkness, will be able to travel freely between the worlds, but hopefully they find a way that makes sense and is really interesting at the same time. But speaking of which, this next scene here appears to be us actually flying through time and space to make the journey. And if the scene that we saw us staggering through Lakeland was any merit, then we know that it's probably going to be a really intense journey. But the thing that really gets me here is that we actually see these shards of crystals that are flying past us, and they don't look to be too big, but each one of them seems to hold an image of a person inside it. And I'm thinking maybe this is another hint that maybe someone here is going to lose their memories. I mean, I don't understand why else we would see all these faces in these crystals. I mean, it would be kind of cool if we see us going through this place only to lose all of our memories, but I also find that very unlikely. I mean, so far I see images of Urianger, Gosetsu, Gaius, Yotsuyu, but there's also Yestola, and it looks like Nanamo, and maybe even a few Asians are here before we get a front shot of the warrior flying through space. There's an image of Thancred flying past us before we come across an image of the Warrior of Darkness. As we reach for it, however, we miss it and we continue following through space, surrounded by all these strange crystals with memories stored inside it. And then as we fall into the dark, we hear the whisper of the Warrior of Darkness speaking from when we last saw him back in Heavensward. We did everything right, everything that was asked of us, but still it came to this. So yeah, we are definitely going to be experiencing more than just a handful of bad memories here. Next, we have the image of some Sin Eaters arriving from the Wave of Light, and we get a brief discussion to what they are and just how they're made. Apparently they're made from all those people who were caught up in the Flood of Light. That's when we go back to the space in between to where we are falling and we see this bright light in the distance. And through the light, we see a familiar image of an old friend waiting to greet us. Meanwhile, we hear what appears to be Alize's voice saying, "That's how the Sin Eaters came to be. They were once living creatures, people that were caught up in the path of the flood. Once the change is warped, there is no going back." So yes, we will definitely be learning a lot more about the Sin Eater, and I hope that you are all very interested in the Sin Eaters because we're going to be discussing them a lot. We're going to be hearing those terms very often here, at least judging from what I've seen here. Moving on next, we seem to be part of some kind of battle scenes. We seem to be part of a dungeon, and we see the warrior there with the twins fighting alongside us. We have Alphinaud and Alize there. Good to see them again. But there's also a third person, and it seems to be the owner of the strange voice that we've been hearing, and the person we met back in 4.55. So we are in the middle of a forest area, battling against Sin Eaters as we fight our way through. So this is definitely, in my opinion, going to be one of the many dungeons that we're going to be having. They did say that we're going to be having around 9 dungeons with the release. And this looks to be part of the trust system. So we definitely have Alize there, who's going to be a DPS. We have the warrior standing in the role of a tank. And then we have Alphinaud and the mysterious voice guy. Now, the mysterious voice guy is definitely wielding a staff, so at first I thought that, well, maybe he's going to be a white mage, but I don't know, the moves that he's making here definitely seem to be much more of a black mage, so I'm going to say that he's going to be the DPS, which leaves Alphinaud as only a healer. And it kind of makes sense. He definitely does seem a little bit more like a healer class to me now than a DPS. At least judging from all the carbuncles that he's come up with that seem to be defending us more than actually fighting. Which I really like. I really do like the idea of him actually being a healer, so I know who I'm picking to be my healer every time that we run through a dungeon from now on. Next shot is more of flying Sin Eaters soaring through the sky and heading towards the Crystarium, most likely flying in to attack the city in a surprise attack. So I'm guessing that this is kind of going to be around near the beginning of the story of Shadowbringers. This is where we're actually going to see the people defend the Crystarium, kind of see what they're capable of, and possibly one of the first fights that we have in the game after reuniting with our friends, both old ones and new ones. Next up, we see the warrior wandering about this wooded area again as he goes to examine some ruins, and we see the winged Sin Eater appearing through the light to attack them. Now, seeing these Sin Eaters is never a good time, but this guy's timing is much better than this next guy who's battling against a foe and he's brought down. In this scene, we kind of have the ghostly image of a person being swallowed by the light and perhaps turning into a Sin Eater in the process, so not the best way to go. Now, this next Sin Eater is kind of freaking me out with its empty eyes. Square Enix really seemed to went out all details on these new designs, and so I have to give them kudos for that, even if they give me nightmares. We have a few more images of what look to be soldiers or guards, probably defenders of the Crystarium and of Lakeland, being ambushed or attacked in the middle of shift change. Either his friend is lying there dead up against the tree or is sleeping, I don't know. But they are definitely under attack, and that's when we go to the largest Sin Eater yet in the middle of these burning houses and wooded area again. Now, after seeing this guy, I think I know now why they're called Sin Eaters. Because some of these guys are ugly as sin. I mean, look at that tongue. Look at those chains. This guy is freaky, and I'm guessing he's going to be the boss of this particular dungeon that we're going to be fighting our way through. Now, I'm pretty sure that this next part is still more about the dungeon because we have the twins and the owner of the mysterious voice guy running behind us while we head straight towards more Sin Eaters. We see that there's fire still burning in the background, so we know that this place is not a safe place to be. I'm pretty sure that this is actually going to be part of the plains of Kusala, so we're going to be part of the island outside Ilmor. Next couple scenes are us running through more damaged areas and dungeons. We see more of the scorpion type versions of these Sin Eaters in the forests of Kusala, and here is more rocky area where we see the image of a glowing crystal. So not only am I guessing that this is actually part of the 6th area, but perhaps we are heading towards battle with innocence, but we'll get more on that later. The eternal light of these creatures has confounded us for nigh on 100 years. For each we have put down, another rises up in its place, born of the self-same ether born of its predecessor. So yeah, that's a little bit more information about the Sin Eaters, because it seems that no matter how many times they cut one down, they just eventually come back up again with vengeance. Yeah, so these guys are not going to be easy to fight with. We next see a few guards fighting against some more Sin Eaters somewhere in Lakeland before they're cutting straight to a Viera, dressed in the same uniform as the guards we saw before, and she throws some of those throwing weapons that we now know as part of the dancer class. So she's definitely some kind of a dancer. We see more images of us fighting our way through this dungeon, including the image of the winged creature from the cinematic version, and if I had to guess, I would say that this is either the first or the second boss of this dungeon. And lastly, we have another image of another Sin Eater that looks to be kind of a face on a shield upon disembodied wings. Looks like the Warrior of Light really has their work cut out for them. Moving on, we get our first real look of Ilmor, and even to what we discover to be Sin Eaters, more of the beautiful kind I'm guessing, actually living within the castle walls. And it's hard to tell from the scene, but it also looks like they appear to be in gold chains. So either they're there as pets or even trophies. Either way, that's kind of a freaky thought. We actually see one of them petting a calmer or tamer version of the lion Sin Eater, similar to the one that we saw in the cinematic, where it looked like Thancred was directly below Ilmor and with a child version of Minfilia. So I'm guessing that we are definitely going to be getting a reference there, or even see the scene of Thancred rescuing this girl. But that's when we get our first look at a man named Volfrey. I don't know who he is, I don't know what he's about, I don't even know what he is. I mean, I honestly can't tell what type of race this guy is. But I can't be the only one who looks at him and sees the words bad guy written over him. That's when we hear, I think, Alphinaud's voice saying, "That's him, that's Volfrey." And then later we hear Volfrey saying, "The Sin Eaters are part of Ilmor's society, but they must be fed with ether, living ether." Yeah, so this guy seems to be the big fat cat who rules over the other fat cats. He's the one in charge. He's sitting around enjoying ruling over this dying world. He doesn't give a damn about anything but himself and his own desires. He's just doing whatever he wants here. And with the world ending, I honestly can't see him actually caring too much about his people here. So he's probably been sacrificing them to his pet Sin Eaters and possibly for his own entertainment. In the next image, we see what look to be the streets of Ymor, and we have a few people walking around, including a few girls dressed in kind of that jester-style outfit. One of the girls is looking back at us, and though she does look very familiar, I can't say for sure if this is some version of Minfilia. I mean, it's possible it could be her, but I also think that it's a little bit more likely that this is a new ally or a friend that we meet in this new world, at least judging from that smile. Next, we have the image of the Crystal Tower, or inside it, that we have an older gentleman standing before us. No idea who he is yet, but he's definitely carrying this air about him that makes you think that he could easily kick your ass. Battle-scarred and dangerous. Friend or foe? I think that's up in the air at this point. I want to say he's an ally. Maybe he plays the role of kind of a mentor to the Scions now. Maybe even a leader of the Crystarium. Certainly possible. Next image, we have a boy standing in front of another Sin Eater. We get it, these guys are bad news, who look like they're about to chop him in half. But then we're back in Ymor, and we see both Alphinaud and the warrior there with a group of people, while a male Makote is on the ground holding a wounded arm, and we see a dropped knife here. So I'm guessing that he may have been a man who was sick of how he and his people were being treated by these fat cats. He somehow managed to get into this place, and he actually tried to kill Volfrey. But he was attacked in the process. Perhaps he was going to be a sacrifice to the Sin Eaters and he tried to fight back. That's when he tried to pull a knife on Volfrey, only to be stopped, possibly by the Sin Eaters. All I know for sure is that it looks like it really hurts, and the warrior is quickly growing angrier by the second every time he stands there. Next, we're back in Lakeland, where we see the Sin Eater continuing their attack. We see people battling with them, including the female dancing Viera. Now that I think of it though, she looks a great deal like the dancer we saw before in the trailer, so I'm guessing that this may be a new friend, somebody that we do at least get to know. But whatever, we do have Volfrey saying that the Sin Eaters need to be fed and all that, and he's just angering the warrior to such a point that it really does look like he's about to step in and take down Volfrey himself. Kind of like how angry the warrior got when Ashahi was kind of mocking Yotsuyu's pain, all of she went through, and just degrading her as she was dying. It's something else that I notice about the warrior. It's very subtle. I mean, we don't see it too often, but he's definitely starting to grow angrier, at least more short-tempered with people. Then we see just more scenes of the warrior, like slowly but surely growing angrier at everything that they are seeing here. It's like they know this is messed up. They know that this is not something that they want to accept. They don't want to just stand there and do nothing. They want to step in and do what they do best. They want to set things right when they know that they can't. In fact, it really does look like they're about to step in and fight until Alphinaud has to step in front of them and basically hold their hand up and remind them, no, that's not a good idea. But I really do hope that we see Volfrey getting what he deserves. Like, I don't think he's going to be living past Shadowbringers. It's only going to be a matter of time before the warrior completely loses it on somebody. I'm just hoping that if they do, it's going to be against Volfrey. I really want to see him just take that fat guy down. Man, there is just so much going on. We next have Thancred fighting against a Sin Eater, only to later change and is suddenly charging at Yastola, who hasn't lost her touch as a healer, even though she's gone more of the Black Mage. And he's just battling against this barrier. At least I think it's Thancred. It kind of looks like him anyway. And we see that Alisaie sure isn't falling behind. She's continued on with her studies, and she's determined to kind of hold her ground. Like, she doesn't want to be a liability to her friends. But next we see this girl being escorted through Lakeland, who does look strangely familiar. Is this Minfilia? I'm not sure yet, but I do think she has some kind of connection with the Minfilia that we know, because it can't be a coincidence that she looks so much like her. In fact, we also have this memory of Minfilia halting the Flood of Light, and we definitely see a resemblance. So maybe this girl was actually created as a kind of reflection, or maybe even a clone of Minfilia. Maybe it actually is her, but she ended up losing all of her memories, maybe all of her abilities, and it's someone completely else. Who can say? I honestly don't know. All I do know is that we next have Thancred and Noriange with the warrior again, perhaps explaining more about what they learned about this world and filling them in on everything that's going on here in the First Shard. Possibly we're speaking back in the Crystarium after we were all reunited. But it does seem that we are getting a tour of the Crystarium from our mysterious friend here. From what we've seen, he does appear to be on our side so far, at least judging from the trust system that I've seen, so I don't think that we need to worry about him betraying us right now. I really hope he doesn't, because he doesn't seem like a bad guy. I mean, he's vague as hell, and that's really annoying, but that's just me. But as we see the two of them speaking here, we see another pixie appear, and a cute one at that. Perhaps she's going to be our introduction to the pixies, or even serves as a guide for us as we go around the First Shard. I would love that. I would love to have like a little fairy following us around, telling us about everything, giving us some clues on the lore and all that. We get another image of another Viera, and it looks to be somewhere in the Great Wood. And I think she's just attacking us because she thinks that we're intruders or something. She's here to defend her home from us. Could possibly be another ally in the future. Meanwhile, we see Solus has also found his way here, and like we thought, he's showing us his true nature as an Ascian, and we know that with his glowing mask. Can't really see in detail what it looks like, but that still doesn't mean that we don't know what he's up to. I will say he seems to be the one taking the time to explain to us things that are going on, so I have no idea what his deal is. No time to worry about that though. We see fire spreading throughout the Crystarium and we have to get down to work. We appear to be in another dungeon afterwards. We have Urianger healing us and Y'shtola and Alize kind of like on backup as we fight through this burning wreckage. Another image of a dungeon where we have a giant fist coming out to attack us, and not just a stone fist, and I mean a giant stone fist. Sin Eater or not, that thing looks big and dangerous. But here's a surprise in the form of the girl who may or may not be Minfilia fighting alongside us. And we actually see her using daggers, fighting like a rogue or a ninja, and I love that, but it also continues to bring doubt that this is Minfilia, because the Minfilia we know is not a fighter. I don't know, but it seems like the Sin Eaters are getting sexier, for we know that there's another boss we're up against, and I'm guessing it's another part of the dungeon, but this particular Sin Eater is hot as hell. However, when we get to the next scene, you can forget about what I said about them getting sexier, because this one is anything but hot. A giant three-headed fox creature coming towards us. Everything's really fast-paced now, because after that we have Titania's battleground, including the aged tree in the background who seems to be under her command. He's ready to flatten us as Titania flies around us and is continuing to cast her spells. Next up we have what can only be Innocence. He's up there. We see part of his/her battle. Don't know what gender it is yet, but you can't help but be amazed by the battleground. I'm already dreading the extreme mode of Innocence. But here is another big surprise. We have the image of Gaius, aka the Shadow Hunter, here with what looks to be Estinian. We have two of the darkest, moodiest, brooding types speaking to each other now? Why? It doesn't look like they're actually in the First Shard, so I'm guessing we're actually getting a glimpse of something that's happening back in Eorzea, which makes sense because the Warrior of Light's not there anymore. They're busy fighting in the First. They have all of this hell going through down in the First Shard. Who's going to be here to guard Eorzea? We have Estinian and Gaius possibly joining forces to help prevent the Garleans from spreading their reach any further, at least until the Warrior of Light gets back. I really can't wait to see how that's going to work out. Next, we have our mysterious friend stamping his staff, and suddenly we're back on that strange geometric circle in space as we see light flashing overhead. So on either side of the warrior, we have the twins, and it looks like we're about to get some real answers from this guy here. Just what's going on and who he is, and possibly like the true nature of what's happening here. This next scene, we have a surprise in the form of the Journal of Heavensward, the same one that Count Edmond was writing in way back in Heavensward. It could be about the restoration of Ishgard, but somehow I kinda doubt that. Next we have our mysterious friend resting against a rock as he stares at his crystal hand as he speaks to us. Maybe he's recalling some sort of memory. Maybe he's dreading this crystal that's actually spreading across his body. Maybe it's only going to be a matter of time before he turns solid to crystal. It could happen, I don't know. Thancred is fighting against the old man that we saw before, but it doesn't look like he's doing well. I mean, this guy's hands are actually behind his back and he's just dodging. It's like he's enjoying himself as Thancred fights him. Next scene, we have Alize reaching out, perhaps to us for help as she looks scared. Something big is happening. Next is the female Vieira dancer again, who is beating the ground, and she looks angry, and I'm guessing that she got beaten by a Sin Eater and was rescued by someone else. I get the feeling she's not someone who takes being treated as a damsel in distress well. But we do know that a battle seems to have taken place here. We have the warrior on his knees, struggling to get back as all the others are out cold behind him. Of course, the warrior isn't the type who is willing to give up that easily, and what's this? We have the ghostly form of Albert here as he's fighting on, perhaps in some forgotten memory of when the warrior was once here in Lakeland. And we hear the voice say, "This world is beyond saving. Like those who tried to save it, this world has had its fill of heroes. Everything we did, everything we gave, what was it all for?" So there is definitely going to be some heavy stuff going on here. There is a lot to take in, and it's happening it's almost like an overload here. We're just getting so much, but very little information. Next, we have the warrior and Alphinaud standing upon a bridge. Could it possibly be the reunion between two friends? Or something much more sinister? Is it possible that our friends may have forgotten us after all that's happened? Did they lose their memories and they're acting like they've met for the first time? Is it just a little bit too good to be true for Alphinaud to believe that an old friend from the first shard has come to save them? I don't know, I can't wait to see it! But now we have the Gunbreaker there, strutting his stuff, and we see some of the new moves before cutting back to Y'shtola, gazing upwards as she falls backward with a smile. Volfrey is there, and he clearly knows some kind of magic, which really makes you wonder how else he was able to stay in charge, given how huge he is. Though I suppose all he has to do is be pushed out of his chair and kind of flatten everyone as he rolls over them. Maybe everyone was just so scared of how he looks that was all he needed. But perhaps there is a reason why the magic in his hand is the same color as the symbol that covers this entire world. World of the First? I guess that's one way to get a full map of the area. But the warriors are far from over. We see a summoner bringing out the phoenix to battle. We see a bard firing an arrow. Red Mage is bringing fire to her foes before we cut to an image of Alphinaud holding his sister as he stares up. Once again, we know that things are getting intense in battle. Meanwhile, the image of a figure cloaked in darkness is stepping ever closer. Could it be a possible new foe, or even ourselves, somehow giving in to the darkness? More images of the new jobs fighting. White Mage, Monk, Black Mage, Astrologian, Samurai, all kicking butt. But what's this? The warrior pulls out his own heart to summon his shadow to fight with him. We have a Black Mage raining down spells. The Dragoon is repeating the same move that Nidhogg and Estinian once used against us. While we have ninjas using double team, it's all madness here. We get it. The new jobs are badass, and we love it. But we're still far from over, ladies and gentlemen. We see the warrior standing in front of a bright light while Thancred has been brought to his knees. Meanwhile, our mysterious friend is standing encased with lights and is looking to be either in the Crystal Tower, or maybe upon the same platform where we fought against innocents. But is it his light that's being drawn to us? Here we have the look of our two possible Minfilias, the one we said goodbye to and the rogue that we meet up with. Are they one and the same? Were they created to be a part of each other? Or not? I don't know! Like I said, this is all speculation. I do see that they're standing upon what appear to be shores of water, but that's about all that I can really make out. I mean, is it too much to say that the fact that they look so similar is just a coincidence? Yeah, kind of. I mean, I would be very surprised if it really was just a coincidence. Next, we see that girl again as she stands among the other scions. We watch the kind of like this flow of light and darkness rising in front of them. And where's the Warrior of Lights and all that, though? Either way, we do see the Warrior of Light one more time, and whether they choose to remain a Warrior of Light or go into the dark side, we can't help but seem to bring the light. Even when it's gathering inside us and fired into the sky, it can't help but part the clouds to reveal a dark night and little stars, showing that no matter how dark it gets, there is always going to be a speck of light. And finally, to the last scene. Meanwhile, we have that mysterious voice speaking one more time. How many years have I waited for this moment? For the one who possesses of her blessing. For you. So, it seems that our mysterious friend here is not maybe human? At least that's kind of what I suspect. I mean, I think he might have started off as mortal, but he was given some sort of task. He definitely seems to know a lot more than he was letting on, and he definitely said so on several occasions that he has been waiting for the Warrior of Light. He's been waiting for our character to come here. Who he is, I don't know. What he's after, I don't know. I mean, I still can't tell if it's really a Makote or not. There's all this talk about who this guy really is. So hopefully we will be finding out very quickly who he is and what he is asking of us. But finally, after we see the ending scene, we go to the final scene of the trailer where we have the group in the cave once again. We see the images painted up on the walls, such as the familiar shape of a god being worshipped, as well as two smaller images of spirits that are also being worshipped by the people, who are presumably the images of Hydaelyn and Zodiark. That's when we have the image of Solus appearing, speaking to us about the true nature of the star of which we stand upon. Through prayer and sacrifice, the will of the star was made manifest. And then we have Thancred saying, "I'm sorry, I can only assume I misheard, but it sounds an awful lot like you were implying that Zodiark and Hydaelyn are not gods." And that's when we got a huge bombshell when Solus confesses, they are gods after a fashion, yes, the eldest and most powerful of primals. Wow, so that's definitely a lot of information that we got at once, like kind of bombarded us with almost a movie trailer. And I complained about it a lot in the past because the trailers, like for the expansion and for the patches themselves, were seemingly getting shorter and shorter each time, but now I see why they're doing that. They're trying to keep the hype up. They don't want to give away too much information. It's much more like a movie trailer now, and I guess I can kind of understand why, and I kind of like it that way. But yeah, people are just so shocked by hearing that Hydaelyn and Zodiark are primals. Granted, we still don't know if what Solus is saying is true or not, but I see no reason why he would be lying at this point. I mean, I think deep down we all kind of suspected that Hydaelyn and Zodiark were primals, and if you really stop to think about it, it does explain a lot of things. It does make a lot of sense. I guess people just weren't expecting to find out about that little bombshell right away. Like, I think it probably would have been a much better impact if it was actually spoken in the game, and that's when we first find out about it. But hey, if they wanted to get our attention, they certainly did. So yes, that is definitely my in-depth analysis of everything that we saw so far, and what I personally thought of what I saw and what I heard. Mostly of it is going to be speculation about what I think is to come. And it could be all right, it could be all wrong, could be a mixture, I don't know, like I said. I am just so excited. I just honestly can't wait to see Shadowbringers in person. I'm just dying to know about it. But yeah, that is basically my in-depth analysis of all the scenes. What did you think? Did you see some scenes that you may have missed before? I hope so. Let me know what you think about what we saw in the trailer. What do you think is going to happen? I would love to hear more about it. I will be planning a kind of a speculation video very soon about what I think is going to be waiting for us in Shadowbringers, judging from what we saw here and my own personal expectations of the game. Anyway, I do hope that you will like this video. Please subscribe down below if you want to see more, and I hope you're going to be looking forward to my predictions video, which should be coming up very soon. So, until next time, my fellow warriors of darkness, I'll see you around Eorzea.